Good afternoon to everybody. We are talking from a very special place, the International Conference Room of the Foreign Ministry of Italy in Rome. It's a very prestigious room for this event, and unfortunately we are very few people here respecting the anti-COVID-19 norms of the Italian legislation and government legislation, but we are in touch through technological lines with other speakers, prestigious speakers that you will see soon after me, and also institutional speakers from organizations in the region, Euro-Med region, and the UN, the United Nations. The topic is very ambitious. We want to deal through an initiative that is long history, Scaena Mediterranea, our attempt to put together in a network all the main theaters, the Greek and Roman ancient theaters in the Mediterranean, with the vision that we developed through this interinstitutional work of the main organizations born from the Euro-Med Barcelona Declaration of 1995, that we celebrate this year 25 years, to the main goal that we believe is the object of any youth and women in the Mediterranean, which is the job creation. So we want to use this cultural project in order to transform the opportunity to go back to our roots and look at the future of the job creation, especially in cultural tourism and development of these theaters. This will be in cooperation from the beginning with our allies and friends in France. We have the honor to have the connection in a few minutes with the representative of the French Foreign Ministry. And this is the project that was selected at the 5+5 Western Mediterranean Summit of the Two Shores in June 2019, launched by French President Macron, as the cultural project organized and launched by the civil society, youth organizations and representatives for the whole region. In light of this context, we thought it was a good idea to make a reference to one person that we consider one of the forefathers of the Mediterranean cooperation, which is Vittorio Segre, who devoted his whole life to the idea of Mediterranean cooperation, especially in terms of relationship between identities, collective identities, and scientific university connection. He himself set up the first department for Mediterranean studies at the University of Lugano in Switzerland, that is cooperating with us. And so we will try to conclude with Stefania Giannini, the Assistant Director General of the UNESCO, some prospects for the future that we want to launch together with all these institutions, especially, of course, the one which is more connected with the civil society, of which with the Italian network for the Euro-Med Dialogue RIDE-APS is the head-on network in Italy, which is the Annalyn Foundation. So I will ask now to launch the video of the first speaker from New York. Because of the COVID-19, he wanted to come in person. We are friends since a long time, since he was a high representative, special representative of the European Union for the Middle East process, and now he's high representative of the UNAoC. So please, let's have this speech by video from Miguel Ángel Moratinos. Thank you.
Good morning. It's a great pleasure to address to all of you virtually, unfortunately, to participate in this important roundtable of Scaena Mediterranea, organized by my dear friend Enrico Molinaro, the president of the the Italian network for the Euro-Mediterranean Dialogue, with the support of the University of Swiss of Italy, and at the same time, with the support of the Lindh Foundation. All of them active partner for enhancing the importance of the Mediterranean in today's politics. The United Nations Alliance of Civilization want to support this initiative. We want, of course, to take an active part in the debate. And a debate that is extremely timely. Extremely timely because it will look back to what has been the beginning of this so-called Mediterranean project that was established 25 years ago in Barcelona, adopting the Barcelona Declaration in 1995. And you compare this moment with today's moment in the Mediterranean, we should try to really assess what should be done urgently in order to create an area of cooperation, collaboration, and peace between the cities, people, and nations of the Mediterranean. The debate and the round table that you have called on is a debate that is going to discuss three main actors in the way we want to really shape the new future of the Mediterranean: the youth, the education, and the culture. And in these three, the United Nations Alliance of Civilization have a saying, can contribute to create a better understanding between the youth of the whole Mediterranean, providing the intercultural dialogue between the people of the Mediterranean, and through the main instrument that we all have, that is through education.
Yes, thank you. The full video will be published on our social media and the RIDE-APS, the Italian network website. But the words from Moratino's encouraging words are very clear, which is an input from one of the protagonists of the Euro-Med Barcelona Declaration 1995. He was foreign minister, and during our previous seminar, interinstitutional seminar held here at the Foreign Ministry on December 6, 2019, with all the other leaders of the regional institutions, such as Ambassador Nasser Kamel, Secretary General of the UFM, Dr. Nabil Al-Sharif, Executive Director of the Lindh, and Professor Angelo Di Carboni, the President of the Prima Foundation, also with 19 Euro-Med countries in Barcelona. He told us the problems and even the critical moments when he was asked to help to convince the Syrian foreign minister to sign the Barcelona Declaration, because you can imagine this is the special regional setting, like the Lindh Foundation, which was born 4 years earlier in 2004, which puts together countries that are in conflict. They don't have even a peace treaty. So this is very important potential contribution for the regional stability. Of course, the protagonist of this cultural debate is the Lindh Foundation, and I ask to launch now the video from our director, our esteemed director, Nabil Al-Sharif. Thank you.
Good afternoon to you all. I am pleased to express my greetings to all the renowned speakers and audience. It is with pleasure and honor that the Lindh Foundation has accepted the invitation to take part in this seminar, which is a continuation of a path initiated a while ago with the launch of the Scaena Mediterranea, followed by the ancient theaters of our Mediterranean encounter. Today, we are here to discuss themes that are at the core of the Lindh Foundation: Euro-Mediterranean region, youth and culture. The Lindh Foundation for Intercultural Dialogue has been created in the framework of the Barcelona Declaration, whose long-term aim is to create an area of prosperity and friendly neighborhood, a ring of friends with whom the EU enjoys close, peaceful, and cooperative relations. That is the Euro-Mediterranean region. People from north and south here, beyond common roots, a shared destiny in terms of common challenges. Education and culture are the main vehicle for understanding, respecting diversity and different identities and needs. Culture is indeed central in our relationship and is a powerful tool in bridge building between people. It can also be an engine of economic and social development in and outside Europe. Culture also is a source of inclusive growth and job creation through entrepreneurship and the development of creative industries. Intercultural dialogue, promoting understanding within and between societies, are tools for building and strengthening peaceful inter-community relations in this region. Cultural heritage in particular is an expression that plays a role in the presentation of identity, but also encourages and boosts economic growth and employment. Culture, in our understanding, is a key element to foster sustainable development, which requires stability, peaceful relations, and cooperation. This is more necessary in the Euro-Mediterranean region now, which witnessed fractures and conflicts. Our region is one where youth represents its major constituent. We should invest in them, engage and empower them. They are the guardians of peace. Youth-led initiatives and education are critical in overcoming misunderstanding and preventing conflicts. Young people are a positive force for transformational change. That's why we say that youth civic engagement should be enhanced. This is also what we do at the Lindh Foundation. With this positive and optimistic message, I would like to conclude my intervention by thanking the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs through His Excellency Ambassador Enrico Granara for his and the Ministry's great and continued efforts. I would also like to thank Mr. Enrico Molinaro, President of Mediterranean Perspectives and Secretary General of RIDE, coordinator of the Italian network of the Lindh Foundation, for this kind invitation. Wishing this important event all success. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Nabil Al-Sharif. I hope he can follow us from Amman, where he's now living for this COVID-19 lockdown period. And I noticed two key words in his speech. This is the relationship between the youth, which is the focus of our work, because we want to find the concrete and practical solutions for the needs of the youth in the future, and also collective identities, which is the basis of all the activities, not only of the Italian network for the Euro-Med Dialogue that was set up in 2017, 4 years ago, but of Mediterranean Perspectives that I set up in Jerusalem, where I was living for 10 years in the year 2000. So we believe that also in the second panel devoted to Segre, we will hear from Gabriel Segre some words about very crucial issue for our region of identities. Now, I would like to ask possibly to launch the video from another crucial institution, very important for the future cooperation, especially in this period of relaunch of the idea of European Union, starting from the Ventotene Manifesto that we will celebrate next year in the third annual Ponza Prima Med event in the island of Ventotene on September the 4th, 2021, which is the representative of the European Commission representation in Rome, in Italy, Antonio Parenti.
Good afternoon. My name is Antonio Parenti. I'm the head of the representation of the European Commission in Italy, and I would like to welcome you to this seminar today on the Euro-Med Vision for Youth, Culture and Employability, which has been organized by the Anna Lindh Foundation in Italy and organized at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I'm very sorry not being able to be with you today because indeed the topic is of a great importance. The Mediterranean region is of an extremely great importance now, and it will increase its importance in the near future. It is an importance, of course, for Italy, no doubt, but also, and probably even more so, for the entire European Union. We have a long tradition of relationship with the Mediterranean region. There is a lot of investment which is ongoing in the region, and a lot more that will be able to come onshore in the future. And I'm thinking, of course, and especially in this situation, in very important developments that are taking place in Africa, and which could see in a not too distant future a much closer relationship between the two sides of the Mediterranean. But also other area of the Mediterranean remains of the great strategic and economic importance for all of us. It is therefore important to speak, discuss, and focus on issues like youth, culture, and employability because of the incredible differences which are emerging between those areas, and especially when it comes to demographics in the Mediterranean region and, for example, in Europe. All of these needs not to be seen as an obstacle to the development of future relationships, but quite the opposite, as an opportunity for extending and expanding such a relationship in the near future. I'm sure that events like those of today are of great interest to all the participants, and I hope that there will be a chance of having a much more closer contact and in-person contact in the near future. And I wish you again a very happy seminar today and a good work. Thank you very much.
Who took part personally at our second annual Ponza Prima Med event last September 14 in the Ponza Island, where Altiero Spinelli was confined by the fascist regime from 1937 until 1939 before being deported to the neighboring island of Ventotene in the same archipelago where the very idea of Europe was born, especially through his Manifesto for a Free Europe that we relaunched through an interinstitutional Euro-Med Manifesto on Sustainability during this September 14 event. So what we are trying to do, as you understand from his words, is to cooperate and join forces, the European Commission on one hand, and the other side, the civil society in Italy, sharing with other partners from the civil society of the region, in order to enhance the Euro-Med cooperation, but on new basis, on a reform basis, that want to create big projects in terms of practical, sustainable chances for culture and employability, which is job mainly for the future youth. So I will give the floor to our president, Giuseppe Giliberti, the president of the RIDE-APS, who knows this project since its beginning. Actually, he gave the name Scaena Mediterranea because of his vast knowledge of Roman law. He's professor in this field at the Urbino University. Just now he retired, but he's still very active. And immediately after, I announced that we will have the Councillor Daniel Schlösser, on behalf of Ambassador Amellal from France, because as I said from the beginning, this is a French-Italian initiative that we want to spread, first of all, in the 5+5 Western Mediterranean and then all over the region. Please, Professor Giliberti.
Good afternoon to all the participants. Being a historian, I find it particularly stimulating that this inter-institutional seminar called by Mediterranean Perspectives is named after the flagship program of the network, of the Italian network for in Euro-Mediterranean relation, that is Scaena Mediterranea. As Enrico Molinario told us, it is a project dedicated to the enhancement and networking of the Greek-Roman theaters of the Mediterranean area and to the development of cultural enterprises. For me, it is a little hint that history has returned to occupy an important place on the cultural and political scene of my country and of all the countries of the Union for the Mediterranean. In recent years, globalization has spread the false perception that history had stopped, freezing people in an eternal present. A single model of development should adapt to all countries. The balance of power between states be definitively fixed. The distinguished guests will speak about culture, education, employability, cooperation, and also collective identities. Why this emphasis on cultural identities? Globalization was supposed to lead homogenization of all cultures, such as McDonald's stores are the replica of the original American model. So why bother of intercultural relations? Why reflect on different cultures? Above all, why bother of the past, since all European and South Mediterranean countries are unable to build their future on their own? Unfortunately or fortunately, history has resumed its terrible journey. And so Italy is regaining awareness that it is a European and Mediterranean country, vitally interested in strengthening the EU and bridging at the same time the two shores of the Mediterranean, the Great Sea. The same awakening of history occurs in all the countries of the Union for the Mediterranean. Due to the Libyan crisis, the confrontation between Turkey and Greece, the growing influence of China and Russia, the immigration, and etc., etc. It is high time to resume the Barcelona process in all its aspects: a free trade zone, an area of security and stability, and the launch of common initiatives for human rights protection and for cultural development, including an area of higher education and research. The Mediterranean is a common past, present, and future as well. So I thank you, the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Mediterranean Perspective for organizing this event, because every effort to establish Euro-Mediterranean synergies is particularly valuable at this time. So I warmly salute this event and wish all those present good work.
Thank you, President Giliberti. It's interesting because during these months, the last months, Professor Giliberti was very active, as I said, in the cultural debate and political debate in Italy, specifically on this issue of identities. He also published a book recently that we want to present and discuss next month on the occasion of our General Assembly. So there are different opinions about the issue of Italian identity, national identity, but this is exactly what we want. We want to open a debate. We don't have a closed and necessarily blocked ideas. We want to open this discussion to all the stakeholders and partners, because we believe the issue of identity should not be a taboo, should not be hijacked by extremists, radicals, and violent people from all sides. Could be racist, xenophobic organizations, or religious radicals. We believe identity is an issue of the natural human being, because we all need a sense of community. And this is why all our projects are devoted to this issue of identity from different points of view, including Scaena Mediterranea. If we all agree, we can start now the second panel, which is titled, the real panel, because until now we had institutional greetings. The title of the panel is Euro-Med Culture, Education, Employability. And if Saverio Mecca is connected, I would like to give the floor to him, because no, wait a second. First, please let me know if from France, as I said before, Daniel Schlesser is online, because he told me that he got the... here he is, okay. First of all, France, la première, toujours. So we really have the pleasure to hear the voice of Daniel Schlesser. Consul Schlesser spoke also in our previous October 15, 2019 event on Scaena Mediterranea with 7 colleagues, head of networks of Morocco from the same Western Mediterranean region, Egypt, Palestine, Israel, Jordan, Turkey, and Germany. So it's very important for us to hear again his word. We know all the difficulties. He was so kind to give us updates about the main festivals, especially in France, Spain, and Tunisia, that have all these current difficulties. But as you know, Daniel, we didn't give up. We want to continue the work that we started, and we are ready to give every support to the French efforts. I know that you're also working behind the stage, let's say, to find the idea to make this project big, strong, and also funded. So please, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Enrico. Enrico, can I go on in French, or you prefer in English? With my bad English, it is what you prefer.
I think you can talk in French. Maybe I will do a little summary.
Wonderful. Merci beaucoup. Je trouve toujours que lorsque des Italiens et des Français se parlent, s'ils ne parlent pas en italien ou en français, c'est comme si on privait la Méditerranée d'une partie de son soleil. Lorsque on entend de l'italien, on sait qu'il y a du soleil sur la Méditerranée. Merci donc de m'avoir invité. Merci pour cette initiative. Je te félicite toi, cher Enrico. Je félicite le ministère des Affaires étrangères et je suis surtout très heureux de voir que les bonnes idées continuent d'être soutenues par des hommes aussi dynamiques que Enrico Molinaro. Je voudrais excuser l'ambassadeur Amelal qui n'a pas pu se joindre à nous, qui est privé de liberté en ce moment pour des raisons évidemment de confinement d'une part, et d'autre part parce qu'il a plein d'autres réunions en son début de mandat. Donc il n'est pas privé de liberté, il est privé de la liberté de se joindre à nous. Je voudrais dire, Enrico, sauf si tu penses que là, il faut à ce moment-là déjà interrompre for a short summary.
Oui, just briefly, Consular Schlosser gave us the idea that languages are also part of the identity. So to speak in French, to speak Italian, in a way, he said very kindly that it's like to give a light of the sun from the Mediterranean Sea. It's not by chance that, as you can see just on my back, on my right, you see the symbol of Mediterranean perspective, which is a sunlight over the blue sea. So I totally agree with Daniel. And he gave us the greetings from Ambassador Mellal, who is just appointed as the coordinator for the Mediterranean multilateral activities of the French Foreign Ministry. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Je voulais vous dire que ce que nous faisons ensemble, la France et l'Italie, comme porteurs d'un projet culturel de théâtre, de festival dans les théâtres antiques grecs et romains de la Méditerranée, c'est un projet qui est complètement contemporain par le fait que c'est un projet de la société civile. C'est un projet qui a été voulu par la société civile, qui a déjà une certaine ancienneté, mais qui n'a pas pu passer de façon institutionnelle et qui n'a pas pu être porté jusque-là. Ça fait au moins 10 ans que j'en entends parler, parce que ce n'était pas porté par la France et l'Italie ensemble.
I think you can go on. Thank you. You can go on a little bit.
Donc, l'objectif de ce projet, c'est de contribuer à une perception commune, d'un espace commun, culturel commun qu'est la Méditerranée. Les théâtres antiques, qui sont là depuis longtemps et qui ont été construits par des Grecs puis par des Romains, sont des marqueurs que chacun connaît. Chaque enfant, tout le monde connaît ces marqueurs-là, visibles d'un moment de l'histoire commune de la Méditerranée. Ce sont des marqueurs qui font référence à une histoire commune, ce sont des marqueurs qui sont là aujourd'hui et qui servent beaucoup au tourisme, qui apportent un vrai avantage au tourisme méditerranéen. Ils sont aussi des espaces qui sont de plus en plus, après leur réhabilitation successive, utilisés pour de la culture, pour des manifestations culturelles de très bon niveau dans la Méditerranée. Donc, créer ensemble un festival dans ces théâtres, c'est-à-dire non pas faire des spectacles exprès pour cela, mais diffuser des spectacles existants dans le cadre des festivals ordinaires et les labelliser et les mettre en valeur, c'est déjà une façon de donner une visibilité à ce qui nous est commun dans la Méditerranée. Ensuite, grâce à nos amis italiens et avec l'expertise extraordinaire qu'ils ont en matière de réhabilitation, de rénovation et de préservation de ces extraordinaires édifices, eh bien, l'activité de préservation peut être menée et peut, de ce fait aussi, donner une visibilité forte à notre culture commune en Méditerranée. Et puis, enfin, puisque votre sujet, c'est aussi l'employabilité des jeunes, eh bien, dans notre projet, Enrico, tu t'en souviens, nous avons toujours dit dès le début, il faut que la jeunesse ait toute sa place, la jeunesse en tant que jeunesse artistique, bien entendu, mais aussi comme organisateur, comme co-organisateur, comme participant à la vie et à la diffusion des festivals. Il faut que les jeunes profitent à la fois d'une expérience et à la fois d'un revenu de ressources qui sont créées par l'activité des festivals. Un des points essentiels sur lesquels nous insistons pour ces festivals, c'est le fait que l'économie locale doit pouvoir profiter de ces festivals, donc aussi et d'abord les jeunes. C'est ce que je voulais dire.
Daniel, one second. Okay. So, first of all, thank you for supporting and confirming the importance of the strategic, friendly, and of the two cousins, Italy and France, because if we work together, we can produce important things. This is something that we understood long ago, and you have to be a witness that we were consistent. We always wanted to continue on this line, and I think the civil society of Italy will be happy to confirm its determination from this point of view. Now, regarding the contents of your speech in English, I'm translating that Councillor Schlosser put together the two main elements of our project, which is the festivals. So he had a kind of genius idea, Councillor Schlosser, let me inform everybody, Daniel, that this part is not even so expensive to put together the best practice of the ancient Greek and Roman theatres in the Mediterranean and to devote part of their calendar to this initiative. This will be a first step just to that the theatres and the festivals know each other and they can start to cooperate, exchange information, and look together for funding for this project. The second element he mentioned was the restoration on the maintenance of the theatres, which is a different aspect, but connected because we are talking about, of course, the same project, the same idea. And we totally agree on this line to put together these two ideas in order to join forces, create synergies, and help each other. Now, sorry for the interruption. You can go on, Daniel.
Pour ma part, je voulais juste vous dire que nous allons sans doute intensifier notre coopération dès lors que le Covid nous permettra enfin, la fin du Covid nous permettra enfin de nouveau d'envisager des choses précises dans les festivals. La première séance cette année, qui aurait dû se dérouler entre juin et juillet, n'a pas pu avoir lieu en raison du Covid, de la Covid. Nous voyons aussi que nos partenaires directeurs de festivals sont un peu paralysés par l'ignorance dans laquelle ils sont tous. Pourra-t-on en juin de nouveau faire des festivals? Je vois beaucoup de festivals qui s'annulent encore. Donc, pour l'instant, nous sommes un peu ralentis. Nous sommes dans une situation de pause, mais ça ne veut pas dire que notre énergie et notre volonté a failli, et ça ne veut pas dire que qu'à l'avenir, dès que ce sera possible, nous ne serons pas sur le pont pour mettre ce festival en route. Je compte sur vous tous, nous comptons sur vous tous, nous avons besoin de tout, et peut-être que l'aspect restauration, Enrico, pourra démarrer plus tôt, parce que là, on n'est pas des milliers dans un théâtre, mais peut-être une dizaine, une quinzaine. Peut-être qu'il faudra commencer par là, mais je sais que les directeurs de festivals sont tous toujours encore très intéressés et vont repartir dès que ce sera possible. Je me réjouis, moi, et je peux le dire au nom de notre ambassadeur et au nom du ministère des Affaires étrangères, je me réjouis de cette collaboration forte franco-italienne qui deviendra une coopération méditerranéenne puisse démarrer de façon extrêmement concrète et sur des choses que nous aimons tous, la culture, les théâtres, le patrimoine, ce merveilleux patrimoine méditerranéen vieux de plus de 2000 ans. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Daniel. So just to translate in English your nice words, about the fact that, as we said at the beginning, the situation now is very difficult for the festivals. There is an economic crisis and difficulties to operate with the COVID-19. But in a form of resilience, we want to continue to fight and to work in the direction of a future, and also to live with the COVID-19, because it will last, unfortunately, for a few months more. So we have to find some common ideas to share. So the beginning will be to put together these two dimensions, the material cultural dimension, touristic dimension on one hand, and on the other side, the artistic festival dimension of the project. We, as Daniel, the Consul Daniel Schlosser concluded, we have together a common goal to enhance three elements of our Mediterranean heart, which is culture, theater, and heritage. And it's not by chance that we involve also the main UN institutions on World Heritage, which is the UNESCO. So our contribution, Daniel, let me tell you on behalf of our Italian civil society network, is to help you also putting together with our initiative all the institutions, regional and international UN institutions that can give a support in terms of ideas, in terms of institutional organization, and maybe also for the general fundraising of the project. This is something that we started at the beginning on May 15, 2019 in Palermo, putting together the leaders of the UFM and the analytic institutions, that even though they knew each other, they never had a common agenda. So we believe that this 25th anniversary of Barcelona, that we celebrate on November 26 in the Barcelona office of the UFM, we believe it's a golden opportunity to use this important initiative, this significant initiative that have roots, but also have a perspective in the future. As you mentioned, job creation is important for the youth, in order to create the scenario. And I think this is also shared by the European Commission agenda and the European Parliament. So I will give the floor at this point, thanking Consul Daniel Schlosser and asking him to deliver to Ambassador Amellal our best greetings and gratitude for allowing you to be here and giving the word of France with us. Thank you. So Professor Mecca is online. Yes.
Yes, I'm
Professor
here.
Mecca is the head of the Department of Architecture at the Florence University, cooperating with us already for 1 year at this project. He wrote the draft of the project, so he's the mastermind of our work. Please, Professor.
Oh, thanks, Enrico. Thanks to everybody. I can add some words to the very good words that Daniel Schlosser was saying us, and some only words better specifying some activities that we could develop with the project, ancient theaters for our Mediterranean future. The theaters of antiquity, as already Schlosser has said, of the Greek and Roman period, have a very significant meaning for the richer and diversified world heritage, for the singular character of the sites where they were built. But the main idea of the complementary project of the festival project, the European Mediterranean Festival, is that large spaces of the historic buildings built for theatrical representation of antiquity can, as many of them are already are, be enhanced and still used today as places for theatrical activities and for music, for theater, festival, but also for tourism, but also for education of the younger generation. The goal of the project, very complementary to the proposal of the Mediterranean Festival of the Greek and Roman theaters, is to benefit local communities, artists, students, but also tourists and visitors who could use these sites as entertainment structures, and giving rise to good practices for development of new business activities for the benefit of local communities and mostly of the young people of the communities. So we have to invest also in a knowledge project, because we need more knowledge for supporting new economies of new development of the business of activities. And the initiative that we would propose focuses on ancient theaters located in different countries of the Mediterranean basin, but developing some very important action for enhancing all the project in next future. Also the project which somebody will define after this project. We have to enhance the local communities, and we have to enhance the knowledge about theaters, their architectural and constructional characteristics, and their transformation valorization history. And we can do it analyzing the best practices for the enhancement of the archaeological sites. But it is the first step. The second step is defining guidelines for the management and adaptation of places of entertainment to preserve their cultural value and their integrity. At the same time, to allow their satisfactory theatrical and tourist use in conditions of safety, including health, acoustic, lighting, quality, stagecraft, and also health, like in this moment as for a pandemic. And we have to train for cultural entrepreneurship in the local communities and young people, because we have to give them also knowledge how to enhance, how to develop economic business activities around the theatrical sites. And we would like to do it organizing a laboratory, an itinerant laboratory, for giving the knowledge and giving the tools for development directly on sites and directly with a very strong relation with the local communities, for giving them the tools for analysis, training, and supporting activities, because the real goal is to create a startup of business activities and operational planning in each selected site. So we need to join our cultural perspective and the valorization of Mediterranean culture. We have to join it with work and richness for the next generation.
Thank you, Professor Mecca. Whoever is following now our Facebook page, this conference, or will follow later because it will we will keep it online for the viewers who couldn't connect now on the Facebook page of Mediterranean Perspective. So if you just dial on the Facebook page Mediterranean Perspective, even if someone is not a member of Facebook, can follow us. Everybody who follow your speech, Professor Mecca, understood that our project, our initiative is complex. It has many technical and scientific and cultural dimensions and aspects, but the focus, you repeated several times, is the interest and the benefits for the local communities, especially, of course, the local communities of the southern shore of the Mediterranean. And here, this give me the possibility to introduce the next speaker, Giuseppe Provenzano, because this is why we decided to give this seminar the title of Euro-Med Vision for Youth, Culture, Employability, since we are fighting one element of our region that is giving so many damage to the youth and to the women, which is the so-called labor mismatch. So the problem is that sometimes we succeed investing public and private funding to give a training and education to the youth and to the women, but unfortunately the market goes in a different direction, the trends of the market. So this is actually the main work that is doing the Union for the Mediterranean, also through the office of Giuseppe Provenzano, working at the Secretariat on this issue, to transform higher education into concrete, practical employability for the youth and the women of the region. Please, Giuseppe.
Thank you, Enrico. Thanks for this introduction, and thanks for the organizer for inviting me to this very important high-level meeting. As you mentioned, a key challenge where the Mediterranean, where new projects such as Scaena Mediterranea could contribute, let's say, in a horizontal way, becoming part of the solution, is indeed this double challenge, let's call it this way, of employability and innovation. In fact, our share C can only prosper if all the stakeholders in a bottom-up way take the lead and advance new actions, new initiatives, and new proposals. This cannot only come top-down. So why should we work on employability and on innovating our economies, especially in the context of our region, in the Mediterranean? First of all, it's clear, the data tell us, the World Bank data tell us, the ILO tell us that 25% of the youth unemployment, there is youth unemployment in the Mediterranean. We are talking about a number which is significantly higher and more relevant than the global average, whereas we have a global rate of 15% of youth unemployment. In north and south, in our Mediterranean countries, we have 25%. This is a very significant number. At the same time, we have 32% of the enterprises in some southern Mediterranean countries which consider skill gap as a major constraint to hiring new people. So higher education in our region is a topic which is fundamental for providing new opportunities, for providing the first steps in the career for our youth, but it's still not creating a good pipeline for satisfying the needs of the economies. So there is a higher percentage of higher unemployment among those who graduate from universities than those who have not graduated from universities. This is against a backdrop of democratic and social change in the Mediterranean region. We are talking about a population where in some areas, for instance, in North Africa, has doubled during the past 20 years. We have a 40% of population under the 25 years old in the Mediterranean. And of course, a horizontal issue which affects all of our Mediterranean region, which is the gender gap in the labor market. So, of course, we are talking about issues which are bigger than any one sector. Education and innovation alone cannot solve the problem of unemployment. They cannot in the Mediterranean, they cannot at the global level, but they can contribute to create new solutions. They can contribute to be part of the solution to this problem. This is why, for instance, the Union for the Mediterranean has launched an initiative called Reinforcing the Innovation and Employability Nexus in the Mediterranean. We are working on developing new tools that can be used by universities, by research centers, by companies, by startups, for instance, through a publication, which is a handbook that targets the decision makers, but all the institutional and the private sector actors that are interested, in order to highlight how to work better together with employer association, with innovation centers, with clusters, with startups, with universities, with the goal of promoting the employability of highly trained higher education graduates and the young researchers in the Mediterranean. So we need to raise awareness on initiatives that already exist, they can already put in place, in order to learn the lessons that can be replicated, how to join them, and how to be part of this community of practice. We have done during the past months, during the past years, by reviewing a huge literature on the topic. More than 1,350 publications have been explored. We had the steering committees, we had meetings, and now we are launching the first output, which is this publication, which will be presented on the 2nd of December, with a roundtable on innovation and employability, where you are all invited to attend this meeting. Our work has underlined that the digital economy is one of the key solutions that can contribute to this crisis of youth unemployment. Digitalization can offer also the opportunity to innovate and growth in a way support the skill requirements that are requested by the employees. And this connects closely to the creative industries and the innovative thinking needed for when planning new projects. For instance, through the formula of cultural startups. And this connects back to this new project on cultural theaters. To conclude, the Mediterranean youth need a stronger collective engagement for skills and innovation, and we can exploit the potential offered by culture and creative industries. If properly planned, in order to address these topics, Scaena Mediterranea and other projects in the same field have the potential of being a showcases and positive example of cooperation in our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giuseppe. I can witness the fact that Giuseppe Provenzano has been following this dimension of the labor mismatch already for some time, organizing events in different countries of the Euro-Med region, and also took part in our own events, like he also came with us at the Ponza Prima Med event of September 14 that I mentioned before, regarding a different issue of sustainability, where we want to establish in Ponce Island, one of the members of our network, a summer school, or at least a laboratory with the UFM cooperation on sustainability, in particular food security, circular economy, and fight against climate change. And also, Giuseppe Provenzano explained how to modulate and to articulate his agenda, the UFM agenda on this field. Last August the 1st, where we had a previous seminar, also on the hybrid model. So some of us were there and some were online, regarding this specific initiative of Scaena Mediterranea in Volterra, where we have one of our festival and our Roman theaters. So thank you, Giuseppe. And very briefly now, we are going through the other speakers that I announced, which is the Deputy Director of the Andalin Foundation, Cristiana Gaeta, followed by Paola Sarcina, and then a brief introduction from Minister Granara, but we just got a message from UNESCO Deputy Director that she will connect in 5 minutes. So between Cristiana Gaeta and Paola Sarcina, maybe we have also Stefania Giannini. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon to everybody. I'm going to ground my intervention of some findings of a survey that Andalin Foundation carried out a few years ago in 13 countries of the Euro-Mediterranean region. The title of the encounter today is Euro-Med Vision for Youth, Culture and Employability. We should start by reaffirming the countries in the Euro-Med region are bound by history, geography and culture. In the survey carried out, the apparent curiosity and mutual interest among both European and Southern Mediterranean individuals characterize a foundation for more efficient cooperation across the region. In relation to the potential benefit of the cooperation, cultural diversity and extremism prevention is seen as a promising outcome. Other areas of cooperation include promoting education, training, gender equality, youth empowerment through entrepreneurship and innovation, implementation of human rights, engagement and support for civil society organizations. Youth showed a strong belief in the potential gains in terms of more education, training, and employment opportunities. Regional policies currently focus on security and defense rather than dealing with root causes of radicalization. Policies aiming at promoting regional dialogue and cultural understanding. There is a growing appetite for mutual knowledge and demand for exchanges, mobility and personal contact. While cultural relations play a role as soft power tool, what will help meet this demand is a sense of ownership of the common space and collaborating on culture-powered social change. Citizens in Europe and Southern Mediterranean share the assertion that entrepreneurship and cultural expression can provide a pathway to promote diversity and multiculturalism. In broad terms, cultural and also religious diversity is important for the prosperity of society. Promotion of multicultural events is an efficient way of facilitating social cohesion. Creative arts, but more in general culture, as a vehicle for the promotion of intercultural awareness, align with citizens' attitudes towards multiculturalism and social cohesion. In a nutshell, we may conclude that culture is both an enabler and important component of development and may facilitate social inclusion, freedom of expression, identity building, civil empowerment, and conflict prevention while strengthening economic growth. The European itself promotes and will promote intercultural dialogue, cooperation, and cultural diversity, and will protect cultural heritage, boost the cultural and creative enterprises, and will support cultural policies where this would be achieve sustainable development. For this reason, Scaena Mediterranea initiative is a good example of a cultural heritage preservation place where mutual understanding and dialogue can take place, can operate, and also an engine of sustainable economic development. Very short.
Thank you, Cristiana Gaita, Deputy Director of the Annalyn Foundation. We know from your personal professional curriculum that you have been studying and developing these issues for a long time in order to deliver some of the main ideas of the statutory goals of the Annalyn Foundation. Basically, what we want is that we need to do one step more with these projects, with this initiative promoted by Italy and France and the 5+5 Western Mediterranean countries, and also the new head-on networks from the Mashrek side, Egypt, Jordan, Israel, Palestine. Basically, we would like to enhance the message, especially the original message of the Annalyn Foundation, for a wider audience. That's why we speak about collective identity, because we want to involve different partners, different stakeholders, different protagonists of the civil society, components that still are not engaged fully in the Annalyn Foundation work. This is the offer that we give to the foundation, and we hope that in the future the Secretariat will take into consideration this offer for the general benefit of all the region. Now, I got a phone call from Stefania Giannini that of course I couldn't take, but I think she's ready. She didn't get the link. I'm speaking now to the communication coordinator, Asia. She said that she needs immediately the link. As she will be online, she can talk. So please, Asia, send me also by WhatsApp the link so she can contact us and call us from the UNESCO. Thank you. Now, we have Paola Sarcina that has been following already for some time, because she was online since the beginning, since 1 p.m., who is promoter of the Cerealia Festival, a festival devoted to each year a different Mediterranean country. So I asked Paola to be patient, because even though she will start now, if Giannini will contact, we have to suspend for a second his speech, so her speech. So please, Paola Sarcina.
Okay, so can I speak?
Yes, sure.
Okay, so nice to be with you today. Also, if we are in a remote mode, as an event manager and cultural promoter in the performing art, also working in the past 30 years as director and dramaturg, this project is very close to me and to my professional background. So I, through the work that I did with the Cerealia Festival and also with my non-profit company, Music Theatre International, we focus a lot on theater and also on classical theater, and also, of course, the ancient theater are part of our interest and my personal interest. Cultural heritage in all its form, tangible and intangible, movable or immovable, contribute to the preservation of identity, encourage dialogue and cultural exchange among nations, and can promote also the growth and the sustainable development. And sometimes maybe can also play a vital role in conflict resolution or in conflict area. The heritage, the cultural heritage, drive the development of the tomorrow society. There is a recent approach that consider the living heritage or people-centered heritage as a heritage lived in, for, and by people. This approach reflects a tendency to consider living site as part of the heritage rather than only things or just monuments. In fact, there is a growing demand for people-centered approach to deal with many phases of heritage. That will be like respect for diversity, a focus on past and present, enhancing the value of all cultural products, as we say, intangible or tangible, fully considering the influence of heritage in the contemporary life of people and how it can improve the quality of their life, and also respect for people's voice in conservation and management of the heritage of their community, and the improvement of relationship between heritage and people in the same territory or in a wide area like Mediterranean. The recognition of living dimension of heritage, particularly considering the religious heritage, and the consideration for the impact of globalization on living environment, and also the recognition of a custodianship of people for the long-term care of the heritage, and the link of heritage to the sustainable development of the society, and their relationship also with a wide variety of professional. I'm think of the stage professional, all the performing arts artists, but also the backstage activity and profession, and also all the professional related to the cultural sector that in these times of lockdown are very suffering for the future of their professional. So I hope that this project will find a way to be propositive and constructive. And just to give you one more suggestion, we are trying to build a collaboration with the Comunità Montana dei Colli Albani to reopen to the performing arts and also to the cultural activity in the Tuscolo Theatre. That is an old ancient theatre, Roman theatre, and not far from Rome. It's very small in the mountain, and it was close to the possibility to be used for performing arts and also to visit for the past almost the past 10 years. So we are going to reopen next year this space, also with the collaboration of our Cerealia Festival program. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paola. I want to mention the fact also that all these ideas related to the situation of the culture activities in Italy at the civil society, our network, dealt with by Paola for many years now, are also delivered to the advisory council of the Annali Foundation, because Paola is representing Italy in that body of the Annali Foundation, and we hope that our message in this respect will be heard, as I said before. Now, I need to know if our staff succeeded to contact Ms. Giannini, because she said she has to speak now, otherwise she will go to a meeting. So I have to ask Ambassador Granara the same question. If in case we have the Giannini connected, the Deputy Director General, he can suspend his speech for a second. So please, I ask my staff to contact Ms. Giannini, giving her all the details in order that she can contact us from the UNESCO office. Okay. Please, Minister Granara, thank you.
Well, buongiorno a tutti. In my capacity as coordinator of the Euro-Mediterranean initiatives in this ministry, I would like to welcome you all, and I also would like to express my deep appreciation to Madame Colette Vital, who is going to take the virtual floor right after me, and to the Fondazione Segre, as well as to the Università della Svizzera Italiana in Lugano, who are taking part to our virtual meetings from the platform in Rome at the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I was happy to listen to previous speakers from New York, Amman, Paris, and Barcelona, and for that a recognition goes to the reformed Italian network of the Anna Lindh Foundation for its capacity of involving all its multilateral partners and organizations for a common concrete goals and aims. When reading today's program, someone would wonder about the nexus existing between Scaena Mediterranea and a panel dedicated to an Italian-Israeli former diplomat, researcher, and academic who died in 2014. Although the link is not evident at first sight, there are a number of connections between the two topics, which I'll try to summarize very briefly. Earlier this summer, my original idea was to hold a symposium on the life and work of Vittorio da Segre right before my retirement from the Foreign Service at the end of this month. We all hoped that the much feared second wave of this pandemic would not come to hit our countries the way we are now badly experiencing. We hoped for a break. Unfortunately, this is not the case. Therefore, we were at least able to switch to a more basic and a more manageable remembrance with a very modest but heartfelt tribute to the memory of a great man who devoted his life to the search of justice, knowledge, and dialogue between the different collective identities in the Mediterranean, in the first place between Arabs and Jews. This is precisely the connection with the approach adopted by the Mediterranean Perspective Association, Prospettive Mediterranee, also in its role as sponsor of the Italian network for the Euro-Mediterranean Dialogue within the Anna Lindh Foundation national network systems. Consistent with its well-established working methodology, this organization is constantly looking for new opportunities of concrete dialogue between representatives of the two sides at all levels, as it was in the case in Ragusa Ibla in Sicily last October. I'm not going to enter into details about my association with the work and legacy of Vittorio da Segre. I will leave that to a short note that I have handed over to the organizers of this meeting, also counting on the fact that our remarks today will be made available in podcast to viewers, including the Italian National Diplomats Union. One of my original aims was in fact to reach all those young Italian diplomats who know little about the author of Storia di un Ebreo Fortunato, the story of a lucky Jew, which is one of the most important autobiographies that I ever read in my life. The fact of remembering Vittorio da Segre, the Italian Minister of Foreign Affairs, bears another special significance. Today we are sitting right next to the Amedeo Guillet room. Vittorio da Segre wrote a landmark book on this legendary Italian cavalry officer in Eritrea, turned diplomat in the late 1940s. These two men, with a common Piedmontese background, were able to meet in 1944, I think in Rome or Napoli, at a time where they were both engaged in the Allied war efforts in Italy. They both became diplomats after World War II, Segre in Israel and Guillet in Italy, and they were both worked relentlessly to promote an understanding between Arabs and Jews. I hope to have given you enough evidence on the nexus existing between this special panel dedicated to Vittorio da Segre and the broader initiative Scaena Mediterranea. In the Italian view, the revitalization of the antique theaters in our different countries can be a major driver in the area of dialogue between the different collective identities around the Mediterranean, and a very valuable tool to pass our common cultural heritage on to the new Mediterranean generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Generale. I will comment later your speech, because now we want to give the floor to Giannini, the Deputy Director General of the UNESCO. If she's online, I was told that she's already online. Yes, she is. Please, Dr. Giannini, thank you. You can talk. You are online now. Yes, please, you can give your speech now. Can you hear me? I see that we see you. I don't know if you can hear us. Can you hear us? I asked the technician to help us in this technical problem to understand what's wrong with the audio.
Sento niente. Ora mi sentite?
Now, yes, now we can hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I take the floor?
Sure, absolutely. You can.
Okay, thank you. So, thank you very much, and sorry for jumping like this. It's a very hectic day for us between Paris Forum and other important UN meetings, and I have really to be in a rush, unfortunately, but it's a great pleasure and an honor to talk to you from the UNESCO perspective in Paris today, and to attend just for a few words this final part of the conference organized by the Italian Network on Intercultural Dialogue and other key partners like Lindh Foundation and Alliance for Civilization, and also Vittorio da Segre Foundation. Let me recall the friendship and partnership I have with my dear friend Gabriele, and the focus we are putting on a new concept, an ancient concept, which is conviventia, which is becoming increasingly a very important one. So I want to underline the importance of this initiative, which is about intercultural dialogue, which is about the Mediterranean scenario as a place where traditionally different languages, cultures, and religions and traditions could exchange their own heritage. It's a very UNESCO-like, let me say, to put it simply, topic. And I could also see the evolution of this process through the years, attending some initial meetings in another position in my country, in Italy, as you know, maybe. So now I think that we are carefully observing this process from UNESCO perspective, and we for sure support the initiative. I have to leave, and I really wish you a very fruitful discussion today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Stefania. Thank you, Ms. Giannini. You gave important words in few minutes, because we know that we can count on your support and the potential future cooperation with the UN organization so important for us for cultural heritage such as UNESCO. And I give immediately the floor to Coletta Vitale, who is waiting for us from, I don't know if from Jerusalem, I guess, right?
Tel Aviv.
Where are you now?
Tel Aviv. Can
Tel
you hear me?
Aviv, Tel Aviv.
Yes.
Yes, please,
On the
Coletta.
Mediterranean. Right.
Sorry?
On the Mediterranean, of course.
Absolutely, on the sea, on the sea. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank you, Dr. Molinaro, and the Italian Network for Euro-Mediterranean Dialogue for giving me this opportunity to share with you some notes on quite an extraordinary personage, Don Vittorio Segre, and also thank the Italian Foreign Ministry for hosting us. I'm particularly happy to be able to participate in a forum dedicated to the Mediterranean initiatives, because it brings back memories of all the dreams and all the aspirations we nurtured during the famous Barcelona process, of which Miguel Maratinos spoke. At that stage of my life, I was still an Israeli diplomat, and I represented Israel in that forum as a coordinator. Many of us in Israel still are strong believers in the possibilities that the Mediterranean offers us to cooperate, especially in the culture field. And we're happy to see that some of these aspirations are still alive and that programs are on their way. Now to Dan Segre, the man to whose memory this session is dedicated. He was a fascinating, colorful, versatile person, a man for all seasons, perhaps better said, a man with many facets and multiple transformations. For how many people do we know who traveled such a remarkable journey and led a life with so many careers, from the heights of the Italian fascist society to a kibbutz in pre-Israel Palestine, from agriculture to an active military service as an officer in the Palestinian Jewish Brigade in the British Army, from diplomat to journalist, from writer to academia, and all these with the ease and the grace of a person for whom all these came naturally. Perhaps only out of the Italian Jewry could such colorful personalities emerge. Alongside these different aspects of his career came also transformations in his ideas and his beliefs, transformation from a young man who accepted fascism as the only natural form of existence, that in his own words, who had no knowledge of or interest in Judaism, one whose father rejected Zionism, to a member of a kibbutz, leaving behind him the opulent Italian life, living modestly and discovering for the first time socialism. From a youngster who fled to Palestine knowing absolutely nothing, to a man fostering a new identity in a new land, a man who absorbs new ideas and fights for his country. With his knowledge of the big world and his new ideals, joining the Israeli diplomatic service was only natural. In Israel, at this time, this was a time of new and fresh beginnings, and so it was for countries in Asia and in Africa who got through the process of decolonization to independence. Dan Segre's role at the Foreign Ministry was cut out for him. He was first press attaché in Paris, then head of the African department, where I met him at that time, and then ambassador to Madagascar. And all I can recall is the energy and the burning enthusiasm, the empathy with which he brought to his work, his desire, our desire at that time, to give, to share our modest experience with these emerging countries. To most of us at the foreign ministry in those days, Dan Segre, or Dan Avni as he was called in Hebrew, with his aristocratic manners, his impeccable Piemontese dress, his conquering smile, and his Italian accent, he was somebody totally outlandish. Rumors in the corridors of the foreign ministry were that he was a grand seigneur who owns a castle and the whole village in Italy. And what on earth does a man like that have to do with us here, with our modest lives, and certainly even more so with our modest salaries? At the same time, Dan becomes a journalist, a correspondent for Le Figaro. We always suspected that the article signed René Bauduc, where he is, a correspondent for La Nazione, where he wrote under the pseudonym of Giacomo Sorgi, and a correspondent for the Corriere della Sera. Dan left the ministry in 1967 while refusing ambassadorial posts which had been offered to him by the then Foreign Minister Golda Meir. But Dan is also an intellectual, and so he looks back at our African experience with a critical eye. And in 1970, 3 years after he left the foreign ministry, he already publishes a book, which he calls The High Road and the Low, criticizing the way in which the West and Israel provide aid to the developing countries. To give you just a flavor of how he writes, let me quote: "The illusions of progress through aid given by the rich to the poor, by the old colonialists to the new independent nations, still seem to many like one of those Christmas days rituals when the masters put on aprons for the duration of the meal and become the servants of their servants. From there on, his path changes to a new career. He turns to academia, first as a researcher, fellow at St. Anthony's College for Middle East Studies at Oxford, then as a visiting professor of comparative studies at MIT, and finally as a professor of international relations at the Haifa University. And perhaps to best illustrate how far removed he was from his youth, from his beginnings, one should also mention that he became a professor of Zionism. Now about Europe and our relations with this continent, as well as the Mediterranean, all these were constantly on his mind. On Europe with realism and some degree of disappointment. For him, the central thread running through European attitudes towards Jews and today towards Israel were long-held prejudices, complexes, and frustrations. He could not forget the long history of Jewish persecutions in Europe, where we had been and still remain strangers. Nor did he think that anti-Semitism is a thing of the past. He spoke up against the double standards with which Europe continued to treat Israel, demanding from Israel unilateral steps or concessions, a pound of flesh, he would call it, in his words, for which there was no quid pro quo. I remember a lunch I had with him in Paris in 1984 when I was serving there, during which I complained that the French journalists are des donneurs de leçons, in English, lesson givers. He answered, Israel should not accept lessons from countries that created Coventry and Dresden. Neither should it accept lessons from countries that have their own colonial past. But Segre did not give up on Europe. Even though Israel diminished its dependence on Europe, finding other markets in Asia, he still believed in cooperation in areas where Israel could solve problems that Europe could not. He believed that Europe has values and traditions that have become rare but must be promoted again and again, and these are rationalism, compassion, moderation, and self-criticism. At the end of the day, it is the Mediterranean that attracted him most. And it is around that sea, which unites us all, that he seemed to find some of the answers. To that area, he devoted the last 15 years of his long and productive life. Despite all his experiences, Segre remained a modest man. He did not think of himself as much as an academic, even though some of the universities at which he taught were among the most prestigious in the world. He remained to the end of his life a man of dialogue, a man driven by intellectual curiosity, by empathy, a Renaissance man in every sense of the word. And I thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Colette. Even though we have here physically a small audience, we heard some hands clapping to your speech and request of having the written text, because as I said, we would like to publish the proceedings in cooperation with the University of Lugano, because we believe you succeeded to raise the attention to the complexity of the life and personality of Dan Vittorio Segre, with the Italian name, and Dan Avni Segre in the Israeli name. So this is also, you mentioned the issue of identity in this respect. And but what is more important, maybe in the last words, you mentioned the human dimension of the personality of Segre and his devotion to culture and to cooperation and peace in a respectful way for all the parties in an equal way. So I had the pleasure and the honor to know Coletta Vidal when she was in the 90s Deputy Director General of Foreign Ministry, and I was living there doing my PhD on the holy places of Jerusalem in the Middle East peace agreements. Shalom, something very simple, a light topic, subject that devoted that needed all the efforts during 10 years in Jerusalem, running from the Prime Minister office of Israel and the Palestinian, the PLO, actually negotiation support unit in Ramallah, in order to give ideas and facilitate the understanding, even from the Ottoman time, complexity of an issue that is also very connected to identity, because the holy places relate to national identity as much as to religious identity. So we thank Colette, and I would like to say something that I couldn't say before because we were running out of time, before giving the floor to Federica Frediani and Gabriele Segre, and to possible questions that anybody who is watching us from Facebook can give us now, because this is the time when you can ask questions or raise issues related to this conference, because if we are here is because the idea originally came from Minister Granara from 2 points of view. First of all, his inspiration about the Segre personality. This, I have to be honest, comes from his mind, his heart, and we are in debt to him for this very good intuition. And the second, because I don't know if this is a secret, but we can say also to the colleagues of Ambassador Granara that are now connected through the video online, that he is unfortunately retiring, or unfortunately for us, maybe not for him, that he needs some rest, because he's been working very hardly in the last period. That there was very intensive work, also devoted, as he said in his own words, to helping and supporting and checking our work with the civil society organizations within the Italian network for the Euro-Med dialogue. So he also helped us understanding the main issues that are maybe the main trade union of all our speeches, which is collective identities. And we go back to Segre again. And he gave us his own intellectual and scientific contribution beyond his diplomatic experience. So in this context, now the floor is, I don't know if Federica, according to the panel list, is ready. Yes, please, Federica.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to be here now. And I would like to thank Minister Enrico Granara for organizing this panel to honor the memory, the intellectual and cultural legacy of Vittorio Dan Segre. I also would like to thank Coletta Vital for such a touching portrait of Vittorio da Segre. I really think that she described very well the man that Vittorio da Segre was. And I just would like to add some remarks on that. I met him in the autumn of 1998 at Università della Svizzera Italiana in Lugano, and I worked with him for over than 15 years. In 1997, Vittorio Segre founded there an Institute for Mediterranean Studies. The institute was conceived by him with the aim to study and enhance forms of peaceful coexistence and to promote mutual respect among communities open to dialogue. He chose Lugano because he strongly believed that Swiss experience in matters of human rights, coexistence of several religious, cultural, and linguistic identities, and above all, neutrality, was a model for the Middle East. For him, Switzerland was also a safe space for people to meet and discuss critical issues. As we all know, there are a lot of critical issues in that region. We used to organize the so-called Arabo-Israeli dialogues. These dialogues were an opportunity of a mixed group of Arab and Israeli intellectuals to discuss and clarify controversial subjects. The dialogue focused on topics such as victimhood, nationalism and the region, individualism in the Arab and Israeli culture, and the Jewish and Muslim tradition. Before illustrating in some depth his own vision of the Mediterranean and the Middle East, I will spend some words on him as a person. I believe indeed that his vision of the Mediterranean was strongly influenced by his personality because he embodied a Mediterranean hero, or maybe an anti-hero. It is perhaps worth mentioning here the title of his last book that appeared 2 days before his death, Storia dell'ebreo che voleva essere eroe, Story of a Jew who would like to be an hero. He had several talents. He embodied the hero with 1,000 faces, but he was mostly a polytropic hero, just like Ulysses, the Mediterranean hero par excellence. Not only because he was an Italian Jew in Palestine and then in Israel, or a soldier in British Army, or one of the founders of the State of Israel. Not only because he was a diplomat, a journalist, a professor, a writer, mainly because of his curious and versatile mind, his yearning for traveling and novelty. He applied his intelligence in unusual ways, almost idiosyncratically. He had an extraordinary capacity to see reality and complexity from different angles. He was always on the move, open to change, able to receive the other's point of view without betraying his views and opinions. His paradoxical and multiple identity and the restlessness of freedom that Cassano speaks of in Southern Thought were at the heart of Segre's Mediterranean vision. They may form the basis for new paradigms which require questioning monolithic identities and accepting pluralities. The challenge is to work on relationship and confront plural identities without expecting predefined results. It's important to open up to unexpected outcomes and imperfect connection between sea and land, urban and rural, tradition and modernity, individual freedoms and communitarian obligations. localism and globalization, nationalism and universalism. Precisely because his thought was so mobile, restless, and creative, Segre would generally avoid conventional approaches to research and problem solving. In any case, to have a more comprehensive, fuller idea of the evolution of his thought, we must really look at all his intellectual production, which comprises articles, essays, novels, not to mention his personal journals, where he recorded on a regular basis his ideas, feelings, and anecdotes. His main work on Mediterranean vision and policy are the Poligono Mediorientale, Fine della questione arabo-israeliana, and the well-known essay entitled Neutrality and Coexistence in the Middle East. It's really important that in this last essay that I have reread while preparing this presentation, I have found that his thesis on neutrality leaves a lot of questions open, particularly now that the geopolitical configurations in the Middle East have definitely changed since 2000. Nevertheless, there are many interesting points that need to be further investigated, in particular, the major role of symbolic factors in the Mediterranean, symbolic factors that today we call more frequently narratives. To sum up, I would say that Segre devoted his entire life to a rather complex enterprise, although bridging disparate, stereotypical, symbolic images seemed, even to him sometimes, to be an impossible task. The Institute for Mediterranean Studies has been transformed into the Middle East Mediterranean Free Thinking Platform. One of its aims is to promote new narratives on the Middle East Mediterranean region. It's through this platform that Università della Svizzera Italiana and myself very much want to honor the legacy of Dan Segre in our everyday work. Thank you.
Thank you for this important contribution to other aspects of the life of Segre. Federica Frediani, she's the Director of the Educational Program Manager. She just mentioned now the acronym is MEM of the Free Thinking Platform at the University of Lugano, which is the continuation of the work of Dan Segre at the Institute for Mediterranean Studies, as we mentioned. And it's important because this is an issue of the legacy. We discussed over the phone a few minutes ago with his nephew, Gabriele Segre, that will now conclude. Just to mention that it is not by chance that two key speakers today are members of the advisory board, both Coletta Vital and Ms. Giannini from the UNESCO. This is definitely not a coincidence that we are working on the main legacy, as Federica said, which is the Arab-Israeli conflict. This is a topic that many people forget or forgot, let's say, until probably, if we can make a prediction here in terms of general scenarios, until the elections, the presidential elections in the United States. Because if you read carefully the text, the full text of the Barcelona Declaration, you can notice that the preamble explicitly says that the whole Euro-Med regional cooperation is based on the Arab-Israeli cooperation. In particular, there is an explicit mention to the Madrid process that delivered then the Oslo process that was interrupted, this maybe not for a coincidence, 10 days before by the murder of the Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, not by a Palestinian terrorist, not by a Muslim terrorist, not by an Arab terrorist, but a Jewish Israeli terrorist. This is very important because it has to do with the issues of identities, whether they are shaped on the model of Westphalia, like probably Yitzhak Rabin took as an inspiration in terms of the famous sentence is said in Hebrew, "Anachnu kam em sham." So there is a place where we are, and there is a place where other people are, divided by a frontier that could be also the place of our cooperation. So a clear frontier. This was the goal of the peace negotiations that hopefully will open again. And this will give a boost also, this is our prediction, to the whole Euro-Med cooperation. So I will give the floor now to Gabriele Segre, and I will ask my staff if there is any question. Please, Gabriele.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. And thank you, Dr. Molinaro, for your introduction. I would like to take a moment to thank Minister Granada, Ambassador Granada, for the heartfelt memory and the initiative for my grandfather, and of course the good friend Stefano Giannini, who is a light in the work of the Vittorio Segre Foundation, which I honor myself to be representing today here. It's difficult, it's hard to follow after Coletta Vital and Federica Frediani talking about my grandfather, Vittorio Segre, and to try to follow through with ideas, because it's not just a matter of what was said, but the heartfelt feeling that was passed through their portrait and their considerations. And I think that the work of the Vittorio Segre Foundation is started 3 years ago, indeed, to do this, not so much to remember the figure, the personal figure of Vittorio Segre, rather to continue his intellectual legacy, bringing on the work that he started, and that is what we try to do as an institution. And we heard words as identities, we heard words as coexistence, we heard words of narratives, and I would like to start from there my introduction of what is the legacy of Vittorio Segre and what is the work and the mission of the Vittorio Segre Foundation. We promote, as a mission, we promote the culture of coexistence, or as Stefano Giannini mentioned, convivencia, using a terminology that comes from the Latin and from the Spanish, among different identities. For us, for those who embarked in the creation of this institution, the idea of identities and the idea of the complex relationship among different entities is one of the pressing issues of our time. And it's not by chance that this was so dear to the work of my grandfather, not by chance that we talk about identity and identity relations in the context of Mediterranean relations. Why so? Because when we ask ourselves what are identities, it's very difficult to give one definition. I myself represent so many different identities. I am Italian and I'm at the same time Israeli. I am a Jew and at the same time I'm a person with a disability. I have a gender identity, I have a cultural identity, I have a political identity, and so on. Each one of us has multiple identities coming together at the same time. And this is true so much at the individual level, just as much as it is at the social, cultural, community level. So when we ask ourselves, how do we look at identities? How do we interpret the relationship among different identities? We start by saying that the three main traits of identities are, first and foremost, the fact that identities are multiple. We cannot define ourselves. We cannot define one issue, one question, one relationship according to one identity. Many identities come together at the same time in the same space, and we have to make them live together in the complexity of that relationship. When we're thinking about the Mediterranean context, identities is not just the Mediterranean identity, it is the conundrum of the different aspects of politics and religion, culture and society, nationalism and people that come together. And so that is true for each and every one of the identities around the world and among people. Identities are changeable. They change over time and in space. So it's impossible to predetermine what is one identity or the other. We need to be able to review and reconsider our understanding, our engagement with identities if we want to create a stable relationship, a coexisting relationship among them. And identities are performative, meaning that all identities in one way or another demand a choice, whether that is our own choice or whether that is imposed from the choice of somebody else. We are not the identity that we perform, but we choose, or somebody else chooses for us to embrace that identity, which means that at the end of the day, we need to ask ourselves, what is the agency that we put into the relationship among each other? Now, identities have, for the longest time, historically been relating among each other in two main ways, either through conflict. I have an identity, you have another identity, and through the conflict, we determine who is the winner in the understanding and in the self-determination and determination of the identity. That is definitely not bringing to some sort of coexistence whatsoever. But the other idea is, the other possibility is not so simple either. We think that in order to move beyond the conflict among identities, we need to move beyond identities. We need to get rid of identities. And this is perhaps one of the flawed views of the Mediterranean identities. We are all part, we are all citizens, we are all people of the Mediterranean. We don't have other differences. And that is equally problematic because by diminishing, by eliminating the value of the specific identities, we as people don't know who we are anymore. We lose our sense of self-determination. We lose our ability to say and see who and how and what we want to be. And therefore we are scared and we are going to be prone to more conflict with others. So there must be a third way. There must be another possibility in terms of the relationship among different identities. And that possibility is what we call convivencia, starting from the idea that identities have neither to be eliminated nor to be put in conflict, rather they have to be celebrated. They have to be celebrated in the dignity of the specific traits that they represent. Each of our own identity within us and outside of us determine a unique element of our own self. And that requires, that demands a respect in terms of the understanding and the celebration of the dignity of that uniqueness. That dignity and that celebration of that dignity allows us to then step up and be more self-conscious, self-determined, and self-aware, so that we understand, not in a scared way, but much more in an aware way, that this is true for me as much as it's true for you, as much as it's true for every one of us, in a mutual relation of reciprocity. And among the many identities, among all the identities that we don't share, there is for sure one which we do share, which is not the most important one, is among the many other identities, but it's definitely there. And that is our belonging to the human species. So dignity, reciprocity, and humanism make up for what we call a culture of convivencia. So what we do, what we think, what the legacy of Vittorio da Segre is let's embrace that culture, let's understand that culture, let's put the lenses of convivencia, the lenses of coexistence of identities on all of us, so much so that we are able to interpret what that means in the specificity of the context and the complexity that we live, and be able to live it and promote it in our own daily work and daily practice. This is true for the Mediterranean. This is true when it comes to asking ourselves, what does it mean to be a Mediterranean citizen while being also something else? But this is true for humanity in general. What does it mean to be part of this large complexity of relationship in a community of human beings, and yet being true to ourselves? So this is the work that we try to pursue. This is the work that we try to promote. And I thank you for the opportunity to share that with you all today.
Thank you, Gabriele. It was a pleasure to hear this very clear and touching summary of the legacy of Dan Segre in terms of his focus on identities, summarized also in the work you do at the Segre Foundation. And I would add one last word, because as you can see from your watch, we are running out of time, so we cannot answer the question we received, but we can launch maybe a message through the Deputy Director of the Anna Lindh Foundation, Ms. Cristiana Gaita, for our esteemed Director Al-Sharif, and to all the ALF Secretariat. As I said, the main issue for which Dan Segre was fighting was the cooperation between two identities, the Israeli and the Palestinian identities, which includes also the dialogue between Jewish, Muslim, and Christian identities. Now, this is a subject that unfortunately we noticed until now, in the 15 years of the Anna Lindh Foundation, was not really developed enough. This is the opinion of the 5 countries that are the new head-on networks, Egypt with Wala and Merna, and our colleague Fadwa from Palestine, very active, and Dr. Muli Peleg and his deputy Martina Etzias in Israel, and Zain in Jordan. We wrote a letter to the director, also in copy with the European Commission DG NEAR, to ask the Anna Lindh Foundation to give more attention, more energy, and to invest more on this Israeli-Palestinian cooperation, which should not be given for granted. This is something important on which the Anna Lindh should think. As we said, according to the Barcelona Declaration, which is part of the Anna Lindh Statutes, this is the preamble, the beginning of any regional Euro-Med cooperation. So please, Ms. Cristiana Gaita, deliver this message from this memory of Vittorio Segre, that his legacy is still relevant today, especially now that maybe the results of the elections in the other states are giving a window of opportunity for dialogue that brings also to concrete results. Is it possible to ask, as we did in our letter of the 5 countries, the Anna Lindh Foundation to give a little bit more attention to these people that are in conflict, and so for them, dialogue and cooperation between them is not obvious, it's not given for granted, but is the result of courageous work of people that are continuing the mission and the vision of Dan Segre. With this question and with this open appeal, I thank everybody, all the speakers and all the audience following us, and I send you my best regards, hoping that you can connect again online with us for the next meeting we are organizing on the Ponza Prima Med follow-up on November the 20th about the Manifesto for Sustainability. So thank you, everybody, and I thank the technicians also who did a great work with the company that is following us, Grimaldi, for a long time and give us a very excellent service with Matteo Italiano, and my staff, in particular Asia Guarnieri, Giulia Ruffini, and Lisa, my secretary, also give us a great organizational support. Thank you, everybody.